I'll introduce myself real quick to you guys. My name is Emily Rose. I'm with Helping Nature Heal, so I'm here representing H&H and representing Rosemary Lonas as well, who I think spoke to you guys a few months ago, maybe. Um, so I wanted to just share some photos from some of our community workshops this year and of some of the plants that we used during the program. The first photo here was actually in Halifax at Birch Cove Park. It was a lot of residents in the area that came, and I think some representatives of the city as well that helped put it together. And the goal was just to vegetate the shoreline quite a bit more. So we've got some dogwoods in there and some willow, and wattled a bunch of branches and material together to create sort of a natural barrier there. Let me see if I can. There we go. And this was it towards the end of the year. And there was a lot of natural regen. I believe we did put some native seeds in place there, but a lot of it would have been what just naturally came back through once the space was no longer being mowed. And I'm sure some seeds that blew in too. So it's doing really, really well, and it'll continue to self-seed, and we'll get to see more native wildflowers in it. So hopefully we'll be doing more of these projects throughout different regions of Halifax to take spaces that are really heavily mowed or really heavily compacted and get to bring some more native species back into them. And then there was a list of just some of the species that we used in that project. Some shrubs and a lot of native wildflowers and perennials. We find that using some edible species and some medicinal species is always really good because people can interact with the space a bit more and harvest some, like especially the sweet fern. Everyone always really loves having sweet fern accessible. So that's really great. Here's some more photos from the installation. Yarrow on site always does so well. There's photos of everyone sort of working together on the project. It was a really nice turnout. It's always so great when we get a lot of local people because it's so great to work together as a community, but then everyone sort of gains more knowledge and more skill sets that they can take back to their own property. And they make a lot of friends at the same time too. Some more of the native species that we're using in other projects. The seaside goldenrod is really great, especially when we're working along shorelines. It's really nice to get in there. It's really beautiful. This is another like sort of public space, a campground in New Brunswick. Featured on the side is some of the native species that we were using in the project there. And then we've got a photo of the team working together with a lot of sort of natural materials and weaving them together into the space there. Another project we did in Caraquet, New Brunswick, and we'll go back there again this year. Some of the projects we like to return to sort of every year, every couple of years to get another layer of plants in. And again, a really great turnout, and it's great giving everyone the opportunity to be involved in the planting. And a lot of these spaces too, we get to engage with people about sort of finding ways to grow native plants themselves, and then they can go back to the site and continue adding native species. There's the sweet fern again, the witch hazel, lots of asters. Hocan, New Brunswick. There's a marina park sort of along the water there. So everyone was involved with sort of planting things within the rock wall and above it. So we could get more vegetation in there to sort of hold the rocks in place better, getting more root systems in there, and just making the space more enjoyable for everyone. So there's a lot more color and native species, and there was a lot more signage put up in this park as well so that people could sort of read about what was being done and read about some of the species that were in place there. This is a really nice photo of a residential project, not one of the community projects that we worked on. But this was a huge neighborhood that was pretty much only mowed. Most properties didn't have any trees or shrubs on them anywhere. And so this family owned two cottages side by side, and they really wanted to get more plants in there, partially to sort of hold the soil in place and create a bit of a wind buffer, but just for the sake of the space being more beautiful as well. And it's doing so well, and it's nice to see it from this angle as well. And you can see some of the patches of color and more patches of green. There were a lot more mushrooms growing in the space as well. And throughout the year, various wildflowers sort of popping up. It's crazy when you stop mowing a space, all the seed that's been living in there, seeing what is able to come up and come back on its own. And I think I've got another picture of this one later. Um, but yeah, it bounced back really well, and it's nice to see how much natural growth happens and how quickly it comes up. This is another residential site. There's lots of really nice willow growing there, asters and goldenrod and red osier dogwood. And then some of the willow has been sort of bent and layered and planted back in the ground again in a bit of an arch. And some of that willow then will sprout up and start growing upwards, and it creates sort of like a natural willow fence that once each of those root up and you have the new growth off of them and they get long enough, you can bend those down as well. And then you get a bit of a rolling fence growing. And it's just a quick little slideshow, but this is the property we saw from above. This is towards the end of the season, so a lot of the flowering stuff has already gone to seed, but even just seeing all of the yellow and the goldenrods and the grasses and everything, it's looks so much more abundant than when it was just mowed before.